today's video, we examine what happens when influencers with massive egos humiliate their Sherpas, only to end up dead days later. From mocking a Sherpa's English on a live stream to threatening to destroy their career for trying to save their life, resulting in outcomes so brutal that they left even the most experienced Sherpas shaken. It was May 8th, 2016, and Everest Base Camp at 17,600 feet was deep into the spring climbing season. 14 commercial expeditions filled the tent city on the Khumbu Glacier, prayer flags snapping above cook tents where juniper smoke mixed with the mineral bite of glacial ice. Morning temperatures sat near 18 degrees Fahrenheit, warming into the low 30s by afternoon. Radios crackled with rotation schedules and weather updates, and every conversation carried the same undercurrent. The summit window was days away. Among those preparing was Danielle Mercer, a 29-year-old fitness influencer from Austin, Texas, with 290,000 followers across Instagram and YouTube. Her content mixed gym routines, supplement deals, and motivational messaging, and the Everest expedition, partially funded by a $40,000 sponsorship package, was her most ambitious project. She had climbed Kilimanjaro and attempted Aconcagua, turning back at Camp 2 due to the weather. Several mid-tier operators rejected her application before a smaller Nepali company accepted her $62,000 payment with minimal vetting. Her assigned Sherpa was Phurba Thendu, 41, from Tem Village, a veteran of 14 Everest summits whose income supported his wife, 4 children, and his widowed mother. He was known among operators as meticulous, patient, and conservative with turnaround times. In 2 decades of guiding, he had never lost a client. The problem surfaced early. During a base camp livestream, Danielle turned the camera on Phurba while he was briefing the next day's icefall plan and began reacting to his English with visible amusement, exaggerating his phrasing while glancing at scrolling comments. The broadcast ran several minutes before she moved on. Other climbers witnessed it. Phurba continued his briefing without acknowledgement, but the footage circulated among Sherpa staff within hours. The pattern held through acclimatization. Danielle treated safety recommendations as suggestions competing with her content schedule, stopping at icefall ladder crossings to film while the rope team waited behind her, spending rest days editing rather than recovering. During one crossing of the western CWM, she sat down in the snow without warning and refused to move for several minutes while she adjusted camera settings, forcing Phurba and the 2 climbers roped behind them to stand exposed on a snow bridge over a crevasse. Her oxygen saturation dropped with each rotation, 76% at Camp 1, 72% at Camp 2, 68% at Camp 3. Phurba flagged every reading to the expedition leader, Derek Hollis, who acknowledged the trend but noted that Danielle's waivers left the final decision to her. Before the summit push, Danielle posted content framing the climb as a test of mental toughness. The post pulled heavy engagement. None mentioned Phurba or the Sherpa team that had fixed every rope she climbed. Teams reached Camp 4 at 26,000 feet on May 19th. Danielle arrived depleted, slowest on the team through the Lhotsa face, short-roped by Phurba through 2 sections where her crampon work failed on steep ice. Her oxygen saturation read 64% on supplemental flow. Phurba told Hollis she should not continue. Hollis relayed it. Danielle refused. They departed at 11 p.m. under clear skies. Danielle held pace through the lower southeast ridge, but began deteriorating above the balcony at 27,600 feet. Rest stops stretched longer. Her responses arrived, delayed and incomplete. She stumbled on fixed rope transitions with reactions that came a half-second late. By 3 a.m., Phurba told her they were turning around. She pushed past without responding and kept climbing. She never reached the summit. At approximately 28,400 feet, Danielle sat down on the fixed line and stopped. Phurba spent 20 minutes adjusting her oxygen, checking her mask, and trying to get her standing. She was conscious but vacant, eyes fixed, body unresponsive. Summit-bound climbers passed without stopping. By the time another Sherpa arrived to help, Danielle could no longer stand. Danielle Mercer died on the southeast ridge before dawn on May 20th, still clipped to the fixed line. Her oxygen was empty. The cause of death was hypoxic cardiac arrest, compounded by exposure. 3 weeks later, during the body recovery, Sherpa was lowering her remains down the Lhotse face when a section of old fixed rope failed under load. The jolt compressed 2 vertebrae in his lower back. He returned to Tem and took work managing a trekking lodge. He never guided above Camp 2 again. It was July 5, 2017, and K2 base, camp at 16,400 feet, sat under a pale sun that did nothing to cut the cold. The Godwin-Austen Glacier stretched below in gray rubble, and K2's south face rose 12,000 vertical feet above. A wall of rock and ice that made Everest look hospitable. About 35 climbers across 5 expeditions watched the same forecast models and waited for the narrow window K2 rarely offered twice. Sophia Catseros, 32, was a luxury travel influencer from Miami with 180,000 followers, built on curated resort imagery and aspirational lifestyle content. K2 was her pivot into adventure, a rebrand meant to shift her audience towards something she considered more serious. Her mountaineering experience consisted of guided Kilimanjaro and Elbrus climbs, neither of which involved technical ice or fixed rope travel. Her $95,000 fee had been accepted by a mid-range Pakistani operator after 2 larger companies declined her application. Her guide was Ngima Dendi, 36, from the Upper Rawailing Valley, a quiet, efficient climber with 1 K2 summit and 5 on Everest across 12 years. His income supported his wife, 2 children, and his younger brother's education in Kathmandu. Sophia treated Ngima as a personal assistant from day 1. During the first load carry to Camp 1, a steep, loose scramble over rock and ice that gained 3,600 feet in less than 3 miles, she insisted he carry her camera gear on top of the group equipment he was already managing. A mirrorless body, 2 lenses, and a stabilizer add nearly 5 pounds to his pack. When he explained the weight compromised his emergency gear capacity, she referenced the premium she had paid and what it was meant to cover. The behavior escalated at Camp 2, when Ngima prioritized securing tent anchors against incoming wind instead of rearranging the interior for her content backdrop. Sophia berated him, within earshot of 2 other expeditions, criticizing his speed, his organization, and his priorities. The operator, Rashid Iqbal, spoke with her privately afterward. Nothing changed. Through rotations, Sophia's limitations sharpened. Her crampon technique deteriorated on steeper ice, and her saturations fell steadily, 73% at Camp 2, 67% at Camp 3. Ngima recommended additional rest and questioned whether she was acclimatizing adequately. Sophia told Rashid that Ngima was undermining her confidence. Camp 4 arrived on the afternoon of July 23rd. Sophia could barely organize her gear. Ngima checked her saturation, 61% on supplemental flow. He told Rashid over the radio that she should not go higher. Sophia refused to descend. They left Camp 4 at 11 p.m. Sophia kept moving through the lower slopes on determination and oxygen. But the bottleneck, a steep couloir of blue ice beneath a massive hanging serac, took her nearly 3 hours, triple the time of strong climbers. Ngima stayed directly behind her through the entire couloir, exposed beneath the serac for every minute she cost them. Climbers stacking below waited in the kill zone, burning oxygen and patience, while Sophia stopped every few steps and leaned into the ice. Above the bottleneck, she stopped responding coherently. Her steps drifted off the packed track. At roughly 27,800 feet, she collapsed onto the fixed line and could not stand. Ngima radioed Camp 4 and began lowering her. Within the hour, the weather turned. Wind built into gusts, driving spindrift horizontally, cutting visibility to body lengths. During a sustained gust, Sophia's dead weight swung sideways on the tether, and Ngima lost his grip on the fixed line. He caught them both on his ice axe, but his right hand had come out of its glove in the scramble. Bare skin froze against aluminum in seconds. Sophia Catseros died during the lowering. The exact moment is impossible to determine in the conditions. Ngima reached camp 4 6 hours later with severe frostbite on 3 fingers of his right hand. They were amputated at a hospital in Islamabad 2 weeks later. Without grip strength for ice tools or fixed-rope hardware, his career at altitude was finished. He returned to Rollweiling and took work coordinating treks at lower elevations. It was September 18, 2015, and Manaslu Base Camp at 15,700 feet sat under a sky that promised the kind of weather defining Himalayan autumn. The 8th highest mountain rose above in layers of snow-plastered rock, its northeast face catching the last clean light before clouds rolled south. 22 climbers across 4 expeditions occupied camp, most having completed 2 rotations and watching the forecast for the brief window between monsoon tail and winter onset. Tyler Brandt, 34, was an extreme adventure YouTuber from Denver with 410,000 subscribers. His channel covered backcountry skiing to paragliding, and Manaslu was the second installment in his 8,000er series, despite having summited only Cho Oyu before arrival. A sporting goods brand covered his $38,000 fee in exchange for branded summit content. His Sherpa was Kanchenjunga, 33, from Forts. Compact, methodical, with 6 seasons on 8,000-meter peaks and 2 Manaslu summits. His income supported his wife, infant daughter, and parents, whose farming had been damaged in the 2015 earthquake. Tyler filmed everything, constantly. He kept a camera on Kancha through rotations, meals, briefings, rest periods, without permission or explanation. At Camp 1, he narrated over footage of Kancha organizing gear in terms that reduced a veteran climber to background scenery. Other Sherpas saw the footage on Tyler's laptop. Kancha said nothing, but the discomfort was visible. During the push to Camp 2, Tyler filmed Kancha struggling under a heavy load on steep ground and narrated the moment as entertainment, never acknowledging the labor that made his own climb possible. When Kancha recommended waiting for better conditions before pushing to Camp 3, Tyler overruled him. The window was closing and hesitation would cost the summit. He told expedition leader Dawat Sering that Kancha was being overly conservative and he would continue with or without support. On September 25th, they pushed toward Camp 3 at 23,600 feet. The route crossed snow-loaded slopes that had accumulated heavy precipitation over 48 hours. Kancha assessed the snowpack during the approach and found conditions deeply troubling. Fresh snow sitting on faceted crystals, the textbook slab avalanche structure. He dug a quick test pit with his ice axe and watched the upper layer shear cleanly off the old surface with almost no resistance. He recommended stopping and descending to let the slopes consolidate. Tyler dismissed it. Other teams were still moving. Dawa backed Kancha's assessment, but Tyler threatened the complaints with the Nepal Mountaineering Association and negative reviews that could damage the business. Dawa allowed the push to continue. Kancha led the route, knowing the snow above them was waiting for a trigger. The avalanche released at approximately 22,800 feet. The slope fractured with a deep crack, followed by silence, then roar. The slab broke across a 200-foot front and accelerated instantly, swallowing the track they had been climbing minutes before. Kancha was knocked sideways and caught against a rocky rib. Tyler took the full force, carried 400 feet downslope and buried under several feet of debris. Kancha began digging immediately, bruised and gasping, joined by 2 Sherpas from a trailing team. They found Tyler by his pack strap, dug for 20 minutes, and reached his face, unconscious, pulseless. Revival efforts failed. Tyler Brandt died of traumatic asphyxiation. The avalanche had compressed his chest and packed his airway. During the frantic digging at altitude, Kancha developed severe high-altitude pulmonary edema from the combination of extreme exertion and stress. He was helicoptered from Camp 2 the following day and hospitalized in Kathmandu for 3 weeks. The lung damage was permanent. Doctors advised against any activity above 20,000 feet for life. Kancha returned to forts and took work as a local trail guide at elevations his lungs could tolerate. Tyler's camera survived. The footage showed Kancha pointing at the snowpack and gesturing downward before Tyler waved him off. The video was never published. Quick reminder, if this kind of in-depth breakdown matters to you, subscribing helps keep these stories coming. Now let's get back to the mountain. It was September 22nd, 2014. An advanced base camp on Cho Oyu at 18,900 feet occupied a broad glacial shelf beneath the mountain's northwest face. The sixth highest peak in the world was considered the most accessible 8,000-meter summit, less technical than its neighbors, which made it a magnet for commercial expeditions and climbers building high-altitude credentials. 28 climbers across 5 teams worked the autumn window between monsoon and winter. Jenna Aldridge, 31, was a wellness and motivational influencer from Scottsdale, Arizona, with 220,000 followers and a podcast blending personal development with spiritual practice. Her content framed adversity as growth and physical challenges as inner transformation. Cho Oyu was positioned as a spiritual pilgrimage, content for a planned book proposal and speaking tour. Her climbing background consisted of guided Rainier and an Everest base camp trek. She paid $42,000 to an operator who accepted her without requesting guide references. Her Sherpa was Pemba Ongdi, 38, from Pangboch, quiet, experienced, with 11 seasons above 23,000 feet and 3 Cho Oyu summits. He was raising 2 daughters alone after his wife died in childbirth, his income going almost entirely toward their schooling and his mother-in-law's care. Jenna's behavior toward Pemba was less overtly aggressive than that of other clients and more pervasively dismissive. She refused to share meals with him at camps, insisting on separate cooking arrangements that cost extra fuel and time. When other teams ate communally with their Sherpas, Jenna maintained a visible distance that the entire camp noticed. She framed the expedition in spiritual language that excluded Pemba entirely. He was logistics, not narrative. The real problem surfaced when Pemba's assessments clashed with Jenna's self-image. At Camp 1, he noted her pace and breathing suggested poor acclimatization and recommended extra time at a lower altitude. Jenna dismissed it publicly at dinner, calling it negative energy that conflicted with her approach. At Camp 2, her saturation read 70%. Pemba recommended descent. Jenna stayed. At Camp 3 at 25,900 feet, it dropped to 66. Pemba told the expedition leader, British guide Andrew Clifford, that she was unfit to continue. Clifford relayed it. Jenna accused Pemba of sabotaging her climb. The summit push left Camp 3 on October 1st under clear skies. The route traversed a broad snowfield before ascending the summit headwall, moderate by 8,000-meter standards, but punishing at altitude. Jenna climbed slowly, stopping often, but maintained forward progress into the morning. By 9 a.m., they had reached 26,200 feet, and the summit was visible above, a deceptively short distance that at this altitude could take hours. Pemba checked the sky to the southwest and did not like what he saw. The horizon had thickened into a gray band that was climbing toward them faster than the forecast had suggested. The forecast had promised stability through midday. The mountain disagreed. By mid-morning, clouds built rapidly from the southwest, and wind escalated from manageable to dangerous within 90 minutes. Pemba recognized the pattern, fast-moving systems that brought whiteout and temperature drops, and told Jenna they needed to turn around immediately. Jenna refused. They were above 26,500 feet, with the summit visible. She had committed publicly. Turning back meant failure in a framework she did not accept. She kept climbing as visibility collapsed. The whiteout struck with full force near 26,800 feet. Visibility dropped below 20 feet. Wind gusted past 50 miles per hour. Pemba stayed close, navigating by fixed rope and memory. They needed to descend, but Jenna was still pushing upward, disoriented, unable to distinguish the route from the open slope. On a traverse where the terrain steepened and the fixed line angled left, Jenna lost her footing. Wind hit broadside at the same moment, knocking her sideways off the packed track onto wind crust that held nothing. Her crampons skated across the surface, and she accelerated downslope before Pemba could close the distance. Jenna Aldridge fell approximately 1,200 feet down Cho Oyu's northwest face. Pemba descended off-route in whiteout for 2 hours trying to reach the fall site before conditions made further progress suicidal. During his return to Camp 3, he He caught his crampon on verglas and twisted his left knee violently, tearing his ACL and shredding his meniscus. Jenna's body was spotted 2 days later, 800 feet below the standard route, in terrain that made recovery impossible that season. Pemba was evacuated to Kathmandu for surgery. The knee never healed fully. He could manage flat trails but not technical descents under load. He left altitude work permanently and took an office job at a Kathmandu trekking agency, surrounded by photos of mountains he could no longer climb. It was May 4th, 2018, and Kanchenjunga Base Camp at 16,800 feet was the quietest high camp on Earth that season. 3 expeditions and 19 climbers occupied the northeast side of the world's third highest mountain, a fraction of Everest's traffic, 100 miles west. The remoteness was the appeal and the danger. The approach took 2 weeks through roadless terrain. The nearest helicopter was hours away in marginal weather, and Kanchenjunga's fatality rate ran 4 times Everest's. Its reputation filtered out everyone except the committed. Most years. Maya Corbin, 27, was a lifestyle influencer from San Diego with 150,000 followers, the smallest audience on this list and the most disproportionate sense of entitlement attached to it. Her content mixed travel photos, product placements, and aspirational captions, and Kanchenjunga was meant to leapfrog her into the adventure space, skipping everything below it. Her experience amounted to Kilimanjaro and a guided attempt on Island Peak, a 20,000-foot trekking peak requiring basic crampon work and nothing close to what Kanchenjunga demanded. The operator was a budget Nepali outfit running its first Kanchenjunga season, desperate for clients after 2 years of losses. They accepted Maya's $55,000 and assigned their most experienced guide. Lakpa Cherry, 44, from Kumajung, a weathered veteran of 20 Himalayan years, with 1 Kanchenjunga summit, 6 on Everest, and 2 on Makalu. He had turned around more clients than he had summited, and was known for it. He was a month from his eldest daughter's wedding, and had taken the assignment because the fee covered the ceremony, costs his family had saved for 2 years. Maya treated Lakpa's experience as an obstacle. Through rotations, she questioned his decisions, complained about the pace, and filmed content positioning herself as the solo protagonist of an adventure that existed only because Lakpa and other Sherpas had fixed the ropes she climbed. The dynamic turned hostile at Camp 2 when Lakpa recommended an additional acclimatization rotation. Maya told him, in front of the expedition's other clients, that if he kept undermining her, she would ensure every operator in Nepal knew he was unreliable. In an industry where reputation determined whether families ate, the threat landed exactly where intended. Lakpa said nothing and continued the rotation. At Camp 3, Maya's oxygen saturation read 69%. At Camp 4, at 26,200 feet, 63. The numbers told a story her willpower refused to read. Lakpa conveyed his assessment to expedition leader Tashi Wangyal, who lacked the experience to overrule a paying client. During the days at base camp before the summit push, Maya had posted content from her phone that referenced Lakpa's caution in dismissive terms. The posts generated comments encouraging her to push through, an audience cheering from sea level for decisions they would never have to survive. The summit push departed Camp 4 at 10 p.m. on May 19th under clear skies and minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. The northeast ridge stretched ahead, exposed, wind-scoured terrain, where the climbing line and massive drops on either side narrowed to feet. Maya deteriorated immediately. By midnight, she stopped every 15 steps, breathing audibly through the wind. Her headlamp beam swung erratically with each step, tracing the snow in patterns that revealed how much her balance had already degraded. Lakpa matched her pace and watched for the progression he had learned to recognize over 20 years. The cognitive fade, the coordination loss, the moment a client stopped being a person making decisions and became a body running out of oxygen. By 2 a.m., at approximately 27,400 feet, Lakpa told Maya they had passed turnaround time. She did not acknowledge him. She kept climbing. When he blocked the route, she pushed past with uncoordinated but forceful movements, the irrational drive of someone whose higher brain functions were failing, while the primitive impulse to keep moving persisted. Lakpa followed her for another 45 minutes, attempting to redirect, to slow her, anything, before his own oxygen and the cold forced him to descend to survive. He could not physically force her down the exposed ridge without killing them both. He could not carry her. He could not summon rescue where rescue did not exist. Maya Corbin's body was found 4 days later by Sherpas preparing the route for a second summit attempt. She sat against the slope above 27,000 feet, harness clipped to the fixed line, oxygen exhausted. She had sat down and never stood again. Confusion, then stillness, then cold finishing what altitude started. During the search preceding the discovery, Lakpa spent 14 hours above 25,000 feet, scanning the ridge. On the descent, an anchor shifted while he was weighing a rappel, swinging him into a rock buttress. The impact dislocated his right shoulder and tore his rotator cuff completely. Surgery in Kathmandu repaired the worst damage, but the shoulder never regained the strength for fixed rope work. Lakpa Cherry retired from high-altitude guiding at 44. His daughter's wedding took place 3 weeks after he returned to Kanchenjunga, paid for by the fee that nearly cost him his life. 5 influencers, 5 mountains, 5 Sherpas, who tried to prevent exactly what happened, and were punished for it, physically, professionally, and permanently. The mountains didn't care about followers, sponsorships, or content calendars. They never do. Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now